Well, hello and welcome to the African News and Voice of the People TV. I am David Edwin. Before we begin the news, we would urge you to kindly visit our website, www.vop.ng, for fresh and trending stories. We begin the African news where Finnish Nigerian separatist agitator Simon Ekpa and 4 other individuals have been arrested in Finland over terror-related activities. A local report in Finland said that Ekpa, the self-declared Prime Minister of Biafra Republic government in exile, was remanded in custody in the District Court of Pite Ahmed on suspicion of public incitement to commit a crime with terrorist intent. In a Thursday statement published on its website, the Central Criminal Police in Finland said it arrested 5 persons on suspicion of terrorist crime. The police said the main suspect was arrested on suspicion of public incitement to commit a crime with terror intent, while 4 others were arrested for financing a terrorist crime. The police said they will be heard in Pajama District Court today, November the 21st. In the statement, the police also said the detention demands were related to the preliminary investigation in which a Finnish citizen of Nigerian background born in the 1980s is suspected of public incitement to commit a crime with terrorist intent. It said it suspected that the man had promoted his efforts from Finland by means that have led to violence against civilians and authorities, as well as other crimes in the region of southern eastern of Nigeria. Moving on, Kenya's government has said it was investigating how a prominent Ugandan opposition leader was whisked out of Nairobi this week amid growing concerns and criticism that if it had failed to protect foreign descendants on its soil. Kizza Besigye, a longtime rival of Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, disappeared in the Kenyan capital on Saturday. He reappeared on Wednesday at a military court in neighboring Uganda, where he was charged with offenses including the illegal possession of firearms. Uganda's government spokesperson said it did not carry out abduction and that arrests abroad were done in collaboration with host countries. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of Mali, Choguel Kokala Mardia, has been dismissed, following his criticism of the military rulers. The development was announced by the Secretary General of the Presidential Office, Alfuseni Daiwara. He declared that the duties of the Prime Minister and the members of the government are terminated. The dismissal reported came a few days after Maiga's remark at a rally in Bamako, when he accused the junta of unilaterally and indefinitely postponing the transition process that was initially scheduled to begin on March the 26th. Maiga has expressed frustration over the lack of debate on the issue, claiming he has been left to rely on media reports for updates. The government has yet to announce who will replace Maiga as Prime Minister. And from there, we'll move to South Africa, where Southern African leaders have agreed to extend for another year the mandate of regional troops deployed to fight rebels in the conflict-torn Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. They also pledged to work for peace in Mozambique, where disputed elections have fueled unrest. The leaders gathered in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, for an extraordinary summit under the auspices of the Southern African Development Community, a 16-nation bloc that includes the Democratic Republic of Congo. Regional power South Africa has committed nearly 3,000 troops to the SADC mission in the DRC, which were deployed last December. The mission is one of numerous forces operating in the mineral-rich region, which has been plagued by decades of armed violence. They include Congolese government soldiers, foreign mercenaries, a United Nations peacekeeping force, and more than 100 groups fighting for power land and precious mineral resources. Others are trying to defend their communities. Some armed groups have been accused of massacres and ethnic cleansing. South Africa's health minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, has voiced his concerns after police said it would send antiretroviral medication to illegal miners trapped underground in the Stilfontein mine in the northwest. Illegal miners who have been underground for more than a month sent a note to the surface asking for ARVs, which are primarily used for treating HIV. Motsoaledi insists antiretroviral drugs are not medications given out without a thorough diagnosis. Moving on, South African police has discovered suspected expired food items during raids on several warehouses in the city of Durban. The raid comes as government tried to contain a series of suspected food poisoning incidents that has resulted in the deaths of at least 20 children and many of them pupils. Police Commissioner Ntenhara Matsongwanazi, who led a team of officers for the raid, told newsmen that they discovered at least 2 warehouses allegedly stolen expired food items and prescription medication. Justice Minister Thembi Simelane also said that law enforcement officers have imposed fines and seized large quantities of counterfeit goods in various provinces. In the latest case of suspicion of food poisoning, a 5-year-old child died in Diakuluf, Soweto, where 3 others were being treated in a hospital. Meanwhile, Police Affairs Minister Senzo Mchono praised law enforcement agents for their hard work during this week's raid. Moving on, the International Criminal Court has sentenced the former head of the Islamic police in Mali's historic city of Timbuktu to 10 years in prison for war crimes. Prosecutor Saeed Al-Hassan Ag Abdul Aziz Mohammed led a sign of terror in the city after it was overrun in 2012 by the Al-Qaeda-linked Ansar Dine group. He was found guilty in June this year of torture, overseeing public amputation by machete and brutal floggings of residents, including children. Hassan was acquitted on charges of rape and sexual slavery, as well as destroying Timbuktu's ancient mausoleums. Hassan looked emotionless after his sentence was read out at the ICC in The Hague, Netherlands. Well, joining us now to analyze these stories and more is Mr. Dele Fanimo, a seasoned reporter and, of course, Voice of the People TV's in-house political affairs analyst. Mr. Dele, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the viewer at home.
All right, let's get to it almost immediately. Simon Ekpa and 4 others have been arrested in Finland over terror-related activities. Some persons will say this is one too many as concerning his order in Nigeria. I'm talking about the IPOB sit-at-home order in the southeastern part of Nigeria. What do you think this particular arrest would result to in the very end? And what does it portend for Nigeria as a whole?
You see, in the last couple of years, we've had issues in the southeast. You see, Simon Ekpa played a role in criminalizing IPOB. IPOB started after Masob by Uwasuike, and the agitation was, we are being marginalized. From that extraction, we are being marginalized, and we need to redress this. And if we must redress this, then we must be seen to be talking and to be engaging the powers that be so that they can listen to us and let our voice resonate. Okay. But at a point, the agitation snowballed into, if you are not letting me go, I mean, if you are not listening to me, then let me be. Let me go. You know, it became a secessionist thing.
Yes.
You know, and Kanu was managing it up until when he had a brush with government and he was arrested. As soon as he was arrested, Ekpa came in. And his case was like that of Shekau and Yusuf. Before Yusuf was killed, Shekau was just lying in limbo. He was part of Boko Haram.
Right.
But he didn't have that authority to instigate, to move the mass of members of Boko Haram against the federal government. So, same thing Ekpa did. As soon as Kanu was incarcerated, he came, and he came with his own version of agitation, which was violence-induced. And you know that at that point, the moment the IPOB hierarchy noticed that it was taking them off the radar of agitation and, you know, consistent engagement, they dissociated from him. And that's why till today, when IPOB wants to talk, it is Emma Power that will talk.
Yes.
But this man became so belligerent. He was out there in Finland, away from the reach of government. He was not engaging anybody. He would just sit, anything that catches his fancy, it drops on the militant group that he has formed, that had pulled out of IPOB. But the unfortunate thing is, all along, IPOB was being profiled for everything Samuel Ekpa did, which negates the principle of the fact that Ekpa had a separatist movement that is not ready to listen to IPOB, that is not taking instructions from IPOB.
Right.
So that makes continued to the extent that he was the one that initiated the sit-at-home protest every Monday.
Now,
in the Southeast.
Interestingly, before I get to that sit at home, he's been remanded in custody by the District Court of Pamen of Finland, and of course on the suspicion of public incitement to commit a crime with terrorist intent. Now, that, according to Finnish law, is, of course, something worth looking at. But the question now would be, bringing it back to the fact that Nnamdi Kanu was moved from Kenya to Nigeria. Of course, he's still in detention with the Nigerian government. Do you think that in any way his arrest could be repatriated? Is there the possibility of it?
There is possibility of him being repatriated, because from what the Finnish government had pinned down on him, it shows that there is a kind of diplomatic relationship between Finland and Nigeria.
But he's also Finnish. He's also Finnish.
Yes, that's dual citizenship.
Yes.
You understand? And so they are not holding him for inciting Finnish citizens against Finnish government.
Yeah.
They are they are putting on. They are arresting him for staying in Finland and dishing out instructions, inciting people in his original homeland. Before he was originally Nigerian, and he still owns that dual citizenship of Nigeria and Finland. So what would happen now is, don't forget, the other 4 that were arrested along with him were accused, were alleged to have been using resources,
financing terrorism,
to finance Ekpa. And I've always said it, what is the profile of this man? And what does he do in Finland that he will be so exposed to such huge resources that he uses to mobilize? So now we are getting to the heart of the matter. The point is, what government should do now is to intensify efforts, engage the Finland government progressively to the point that they will see the need for Ekpa to be handed over to Nigeria to come and answer charges of what he has done, because an average Southeasterner,
yes,
if you ask any Southeasterner, given the fact that this man has his orders, his instigations, his incitement had done a lot of harm than good to that region, in the form of the number of people that have died in the process of taking out, I mean, listening to him and taking orders from him, and even the economic downturn that Southeast has witnessed.
Basically, I was going to stay on that economic downturn. Now, the sit-at-home order in the Southeast alone has made that region lose 4.618 trillion naira. That's about $10.495 billion in revenue. That's a lot of money that would have easily transformed that economy. But that sit-at-home order is being carried out by some group of individuals that are saying they are for Simon Ekpa. What does that particular order bring to the entire region? Knowing for a fact that the economic downturn of that region will continue dwindling, because even when the state governors say, go ahead and do your legal business, the people are scared to their bones. Do you think that with this arrest, there is a possibility that such orders will be clamped down totally, or we might still see that happen come Monday next week?
You see, the order has not done any good to Southeast. From all fronts, is it on security? Is it on economy? Or name it? It has not done anything good to Southeast. And now, because of this, the Southeasterners, apart from not being able to do businesses on Mondays, Southeasterners that are away from home find it a very high risk going back home. Particularly, I've seen people that would ordinarily want to travel on a Sunday or Friday to return on Monday. But flights are grounded on Monday, and they have some other things they needed to do outside of the Southeast. So technically, they would rather stay behind and not go home. And there are some, you see, there's a social connect in this part of the world, unlike the Western world, where everybody for himself, all for God. But here, we have that communal relationship, that communality that holds and binds us together. Now, this man has severed that.
Now,
so you can see,
Mr. Billy, as he stands now, he's been arrested in Finland. He's other country home. Would these arrests anger his followers to escalating far more than necessary? Before you answer that question, I was going to talk about security. When this sit-at-home order is being dished out in the Southeast, you find out that the people who are in the Southeast obey this order as against the statements of their chief executive, and I'm talking about the governors. What then would we say is the security state of the Southeasterners? Because as it stands, you would recall that a couple of days ago, there was a gun battle between the army and members of this separatist group. But do you think, looking at the entire situation holistically, do you think security has been top-notch in the Southeast for such orders to consistently be carried out? That's my second question. The first one, of course, is if it's not going to escalate more than necessary as a result of his arrest.
You see, let me tell you, the only way to de-escalate whatever is going to be the backlash coming from the arrest of Simon Ekpa will be dependent on the body language and the response of stakeholders in the Southeast. As Simon is being arrested, if governors in the Southeast, eminent Southeasterners, technocrats, big business people, and all other stakeholders, if they are unified and if they come out in unison to condemn Simon Ekpa and to say that what they have done to him in Finland was the right thing to do, it will check his band of miscreants from resuscitating whatever they want to do. Two, it will also empower the state actors and security agents to move against these people and rout them. But if the body language still suggests that Simon Ekpa is still being supported by these people that I have mentioned, that major stakeholders, it will be difficult for security agents to go all out for these people. And I'll give you an example.
Okay, go ahead.
When the arm-bearing group that submerged itself into Odua Republic agitators, when they went to government house in Ibadan on a Saturday, you can imagine how stupid they could be. They went to government house on a Saturday in Ibadan and said they want to overthrow government with a ragtag troop that is not even up to 100. And if you want to overthrow government, will it start from Ibadan on a Saturday? But
you know for a fact that even after that particular movement, no arrests have been made after.
Who told you?
I mean,
they are in Agodi prison as we speak.
We've not had any judgment.
I am telling you that they were rounded up. The videos were there, and if you go to listen,
there's not been any major judgment, Mr. Dele.
How could it be major judgment? Trial takes a while. The first thing is they have committed treason, and treason is not handled in the magistrate court. It is handled in the high court, and what you do is they first take them to magistrate court on holding charge. Right. And when they take them there, the magistrate cannot take their plea. The magistrate will now order their remand in the prison or correctional service or whatever they call it now. It is then that they will send their files to the director of public prosecution, who will now vet those files and make a prima facie case against them and return it back to the court. It is from the court, the magistrate court, they will now send the file to the CJ, who are assigned at the high court. It takes a while. As I speak today,
let's just suppose
as I speak today, those guys, if you go to Agodi prisons, they will tell you that they are all still there. Nobody has granted them bail. And that was a signal whoever is behind them will take, that Yoruba people are not on the side of these people. Given the fact that Igboho was still being goaded to go ahead with his agitation. But those ones that they want to come out, you imagine if the likes of Afenifere, the stakeholder, major stakeholder in the Southwest, if they had been silent or they were surreptitiously supporting them at the background, do you think that that group would not have festered by now and the whole of Southwest would have been in trouble?
Now, let's look at it from the perspective of the court that you mentioned.
Yes.
The court was swift enough to proclaim the Biafra movement a terrorist group. Again, the court is yet to decide on the case of Nnamdi Kanu, who has been in detention for the longest of time.
The court has declared
but they've been counter-ruling.
Listen. You see, let's put this thing in perspective.
Yes, please.
I am here to state the fact as it is.
Yes.
You see, it is the government that is still holding Kanu. The court has said releasing.
From your perspective, from your point of view now, why do you think the government is consistently keep holding on to a man who, of course, have even said, release me, 2 hours after everything about sit-at-home will die? Everything about insecurity will die. He's made that level of statement. You see? So why is the government, from your perspective, why is the government still holding on to a man like Nnamdi Kanu?
I'm going to tell you this.
Yes.
That the continued detention of Kanu has various dimensions. And from what we discussed this morning here, there are indications that some politicians, even from Southeast, will not be comfortable for the release of Kanu because of their political gains and interests. Because they know that a Kanu release will be a game changer. It will come back and lock down the Southeast and decide who becomes governor, who becomes senators.
You think he has
that? Because he has attracted so much sympathy to himself, so much power he holds now. And so you will see, when I was saying this thing about 2 or 3 weeks ago, everybody said I was talking Bangladesh. But now, today, yesterday, Abia governor came out to say whatever is happening that has to do with insecurity in the south, particularly in Abia and Southeast, that those things are being orchestrated by politicians within the zone. So what I'm saying is, if the body language is right, it will be less cumbersome for the Nigerian government to file for extradition of Simon Ekpa. And when
exactly I was going, because extradition of Simon Ekpa is another major one.
Major stakeholders in the Southeast denounce this Ekpa that has caused so much hardship in the Southeast, and see if this man will not come back to, will not be brought back to Nigeria.
But then again, Mr. Dele, as it stands, the Southeast is losing so much in terms of economic returns. The Southeast is also losing so much in terms of security. The Southeast is also losing so much in terms of appointments, even with the federal character. Now, all of this is one of the reasons why the likes of Nnamdi Kanu consistently keeps talking. But the question now would be, as it stands, should the Southeast declare their non-cooperation with the likes of Simon Ekpa and his move? Do you think that the Finnish government in any way would extradite Simon Ekpa to Nigeria for him to be tried, just like, of course, the Nnamdi Kanu that we are presently seeing?
Let me tell you, if we have enough prima facie case against Simon Ekpa, he will be released to Nigeria for trial. Don't forget, he's not a Finnish citizen.
That's also based on bilateral relations between the two countries.
He's not a Finnish citizen primarily. He's just a Finnish citizen by naturalization. So he has dual citizenship.
Okay.
He's a Nigerian and is Finnish. So first, he was in Nigeria before he migrated to Finland and became a citizen of Finland.
Okay.
And to that extent, he can still be extradited. Listen to those charges. It said incitement. Was he inciting anybody against Finnish government? No. And it was with intent to terrorize Nigerians.
Yes, people of the South
and
region.
If there is any case, the jurisdiction of his trial remains in Nigeria.
Now, Mr. Dele, at this point, some Nigerians will be saying, if Simon Ekpa is even extradited to Nigeria, and of course the Nigerian government takes him to court, wouldn't it be an unjust level of judgment, owing to the fact that the Nigerian government, during a press briefing sometime last year, did bring out 14 names, and up to date, of course, they said is the terrorist financiers. Up till date, not one of those names is found guilty in any court of law or is found guilty in any of the, finance commission in Nigeria. Isn't that going to be another level of selection of judgment when it comes to judging a case?
There's nothing like selective judgment in this. You see, the point is, this man had come out several times to admit to committing certain crimes against Nigeria using his lieutenants here in Nigeria, and that amounts to treason. You understand? It's another level when you are accused of financing terrorism. It takes a while for you to conclude investigation and take people to court over that, because you have to trace the funding, you have to trace it from the original point of releasing that fund, and then to the end user of that fund, you must also establish that whoever is using it for terrorism.
Interestingly, there were over 400 names that were given to the Buhari government.
Exactly.
And nothing was also done to that as
well. It was a way of profiling them. But in this case, let me tell you, whatever emotion anybody has about this,
right.
I've always said this, that federal government should release Nnamdi Kanu. But this time, Ekpa is a criminal. And he should be treated as such.
He definitely, well...
So don't give him that toga of representing the Southeast.
Oh, quite a number of Southeasterners might just disagree as well that he's not been fighting their fights. But then the question now would be,
He's just cashing his clues because he feels that the long arm of the law will not get to him in Finland. That's why he's doing all those things. Well, why did he come to Nigeria and do it?
Interestingly, I was going to talk about a particular conversation that has been trending as well. Kenyan government has said that prominent Ugandan opposition leader, the person of Kizza Besigye, that was extradited from Kenya to Uganda, to a military court in Uganda, was not from them. Now, one would rather wonder, can any person move a prominent person as huge as an opposition leader in a country from your country without your knowledge? Of course, you would remember how Nnamdi Kanu was moved away from Kenya to Nigeria. So what do you make of this, basically, in 2 sentences, because of our time?
You see, for me, the means and processes of bringing Kanu to Nigeria was, as far as the law is concerned, was illegal. You understand?
Okay.
But sometimes, I'll give an example. If America wants to do an operation in some countries, they don't even inform the country. They would have come and gone before you know. When Boko Haram was holding some Americans hostage in the north, they came, rescued those ones, killed those Boko Haram that were standing guard to secure those kidnapped persons, those kidnapped Americans. And they went back to America. It was when they got back to America, making sure that they were safely out of Nigeria, that they made the announcement. And you know what they said? The American government said arrogantly, said, we killed those terrorists like chicken. You understand? What I'm saying is, sometimes conventional methods may not work.
Okay.
Like Umaru, you know how it was created.
When you say conventional method would not work, are you also saying that there is a possibility that the likes of American government, and of course, the country in question here is the Ugandan government and the Kenyan government, are you saying there is a possibility that they would just get into a country and pick up whoever they want to pick up of any of such movement or any of such approach?
If they had succeeded in picking that guy, abducting that guy back to that country to face charges, it is either there is a complicit involvement of the home country where that guy was extradited, where he was staying. Okay. You understand? Or they used unconventional method and they were able to verate that man out of that country without the knowledge of the government.
Let's stay with the unconventional method. Nnamdi Kanu was whisked away, just like you did mention, was in your opinion an illegal move from the Kenyan government, and of course in cooperation with the Nigerian government. Right now, a Ugandan opposition leader is being moved away from Kenya, not to the Ugandan normal court, but a military court. Now, what that pretend is there is likelihood that he might not even make it alive when judgment is being passed. But the question now would be the cooperation between the two countries. Do you think that in any way, in the eyes of the international court, is right to have been done in such a manner?
You see, I told you, when something is unconventional, what that tells you is that it's beyond the law. You understand? And these are applied in desperate situations. You understand?
Yes.
And they would have, in the course of doing that, breached the sovereignty of that country where they went to pick that particular actor. You understand?
Okay.
That does not make it legal. But in the final analysis, they would have achieved their aim of making sure that they get, and it could be something that borders on national security.
Right.
And that if that guy is not picked, he could have been, recruiting a militia group.
Finally, before I let you go, in one sentence, when you said national security, do you think the Finnish government and Nigerian government will have some level of bilateral cooperation to extradite Simon Ekpa to Nigeria as a result of national security? Do you think that will
there was a time they did it, but it failed. When this guy was taken to court, he was released, and it continued.
Okay.
With his, so between that time that he was released by the court and now, nobody will come and tell you if Interpol has not stepped in. Nobody will come and tell you, because that's pure intelligence and pure maneuvering using underground processes.
All right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Dele Fanimo, for being here to analyze these stories with us.
It's always my pleasure.
We've been talking with Mr. Dele Fanimo, a seasoned reporter and Voice of the People TV's in-house political analyst. The rest of the African news will continue shortly, just after this quick break. Stay with us. Of the main opposition parties in Congo called has for nationwide protest against President Felix Tshisekedi's plan to draft a new constitution. Tshisekedi had in October announced that a national commission will be set up next year to draft a new constitution for the Central African country, raising concerns among the opposition over a possible altering of the presidential term limit. Opposition politicians, including former President Joseph Kabila and former presidential candidates Martin Fayulu and Moise Katumbi, called for protests against Tshisekedi's plan. The spokesperson for Kabila's party, Shadara Ramazani, said in a joint statement with the opposition parties that the constitution was meant to prevent authoritarian drifts and guarantee democratic transition of power. Tshisekedi, who was re-elected last December with results questioned by the opposition, has spent much of his first term in office trying to gain legitimacy after a disputed 2018 election while struggling to put an end to the armed conflict in the country's east. He has criticized the current constitution, which was adopted by referendum in 2006, several times, saying it is outdated. Opposition groups have expressed worry that the president may change the limit of 2 5-year presidential term to remain in office. Tshisekedi also condemned what he described as a slow decision-making process, saying that it often takes months after elections before a government is formed, and has cited tensions between governors and the provincial assemblies as reasons to draft a new constitution. He has also said that changing the presidential term limit was up to the people to decide, not the president. Experts say Tshisekedi has the power to call to change the constitution, but it will have to be approved by 60% of the parliament or passed by a referendum. Moving on, Vice President of New Patriotic Party's presidential flag bearer, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, will commission the newly constructed Wale Wale Central Mosque in the Northeast region on Friday, November the 22nd. The mosque, which was facilitated by Dr. Bawumia's native of Wale Wale, features a separate sections for men and women and offices for the imam. Wale Wale, home to a large Muslim population, has long struggled with an old mosque that could no longer accommodate its growing number of worshippers. The newly expanded mosque aims to meet the demands and serve the increasing population. The commissioning ceremony will coincide with the afternoon Jumat prayers and will be attended by traditional rulers, imams, and members of the Wale Wale community and surrounding areas. Dr. Baumai has been a strong supporter of Zongo and Muslim communities, funding mosques and schools, constructions and renovations nationwide. Well, moving on, the Seychelles government has budgeted $730,000 for the construction of the new National Archives building at Unionville in the central Mahi district of English River. The Secretary General of the Seychelles National Institute of Culture, Heritage and Arts, David Andrea, reviewed the plans after he visited proposed construction sites. One of the main services that the Seychelles National Archives offer to locals is geology research, where people can trace their ancestry through several generations. You're still watching the African News on Voice of the People TV. More stories in business and sports after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now to some business stories. Resolute Mining CEO Terence Holland and 2 other employees who were detained by the Mali government earlier this month have been released from the country. The staff members who had been held for more than a week after traveling to the country for meetings with the nation's tax and mining authorities. Resolute agreed to pay $160 million to the Mali government to help resolve the tax dispute. The mining company, in a statement, confirmed that 3 staff members had been released from the Economic and Financial Center of Bamako, adding that all 3 employees are safe and well and have departed the country. Still talking business, Rwanda's Ministry of Infrastructure is developing a master plan for electric vehicles charging stations, with focus on increasing such infrastructure up-country to ensure that no car travel more than 50 kilometers without coming across a charging station. The ministry disclosed in a statement that the plan will guide investors in developing charging infrastructure and to prevent the development of idle or outdated stations in efforts to scale up charging infrastructure across the country. The master plan includes identifying the necessary number of charging stations nationwide by focusing on high population density and traffic areas, as well as leveraging existing petrol stations and commercial building. A preliminary geospatial analysis identified over 226 potential sites for EV charging infrastructure across the country. There were 24 public charging stations for vehicles, 4 stations for direct charges for motorcycles, and 49 stations for chargers coupled with swapping stations, as per data from the ministry. Electric vehicle charging infrastructure is one of the main components of the e-mobility ecosystem, considered by the ministry as the backbone of the system. Still in business, the European Union has promised to borrow $96 million to Cameroon over the next 3 years to boost the West African country's infrastructure and attract foreign investment. The loan was announced during a meeting between Cameroonian government ministers and an EU representative in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé. Cameroon's Minister of the Economy, Alamine Ousmane May, told newsmen after the meeting that the loan would help Cameroon to develop its energy sector, road infrastructure, and a railway network connecting the country with Chad, its landlocked neighbor. He said that project funding by the loan will be the construction of a bridge over the Intem River between Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea. On his part, the EU ambassador to Cameroon, Jean-Marc Tendna, said the loan was conditional on the government's proper management of the fund. The Cameroonian government has been struggling to rebuild Cameroon's road, energy, and port infrastructure, which have become seriously dilapidated in several years. Cameroon has been also plagued by a separatist conflict in the western part of the country that has killed more than 66,000 persons and displaced over 760,000. The EU is already funding some major infrastructure projects in Cameroon, including the construction of a hydroelectric dam in the center of the country and a bridge between Cameroon and Chad. But to end the African news with sports stories, Morocco's under-20 team is on the brink of securing qualifications for the 2024 Under-20 African Cup of Nations AFCON after a 1-1 draw with Algeria in their last match in the UNAF Under-20 tournament, leading the North Zone of the competition, which also serves as a qualifier for the Under-20 AFCON. Morocco currently tops the group. The intense hunger for victory, however, led both squads to miss opportunities despite Morocco's strong pressure throughout the game. Morocco dominated possession but missed several chances to score. The second half unfolded with Morocco continuing to press and creating more scoring opportunities, which resulted in an equalizer. Subsequently, scoring threats by Algeria were neutralized after the Algerians missed a penalty. Moroccan football emerging stars have delivered impressive victories so far, defeating host nation Egypt and Tunisia 2-1 in both matches. The team's next game against Libya on November 23rd is set to guarantee their spot in the Under-20 AFCON. And with that, we've come to the end of the midday news right here on the African news on Voice of the People TV. Do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we are at Voice of the People TV, and on all other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. Thank you so very much for joining us. I am David Edwin. Do have a good afternoon.